A large mulch fire burns through a northwestern part of Houston. While it's not raising to the level of wildfire, it is causing some concern to people around the city and also people around the country who are wondering if some of these things are happening intentionally or not. But we'll talk about that and what's actually happening there versus what some of the people on the outside want you to believe is happening in both directions. So we'll go over some of that, what we're doing with that, and what's happening with that. Democrat DAs release the details of the indictment for Georgia before the grand jury votes on it, sparking conspiracy theories as to whether or not they actually had the fix in and whether the grand jury vote is purely symbolic or what's going to be happening with that. But we'll go over that, plus some more Trump news, as apparently all of his staff is tied with a breach of voting systems in Georgia. No word yet whether or not he is, but we'll talk about what's happening there and what we do with that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. makes remarks that turn some heads on the Democrat side of the aisle, which is pretty much everything that he does anyway. But this time suggesting a 3-month abortion ban, which would put us right in line with Europe, which is what our friends on the left tell us that we should be aspiring to, but we'll go over that and what's happening there. And an American Airlines flight may have depressurized slightly in the air, but suddenly drops 15,000 feet in midair. We'll talk about what this means and what happened to the people on board. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. You don't have to call me Merle Haggard anymore, even though you're on my fighting side. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Ladies, drink free. We have got a actual short slate of news today compared to, we haven't been here for 2 days, but really realistically, when you look at things in the scope of things, I've only got, I think I have 36 tabs up there, but with the crossover, and I always put extra up there just in case we have to go to another article to go see stuff. I bet you we get out of here at 25 tabs tonight, honestly, but we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about some of the Trump stuff, some Ramaswamy. There's some entertaining Ramaswamy news, actually. So we'll be talking a bit about that. Some news out of my state with our newest Supreme Court justice. The Trump stuff, the wildfires, some finance stuff above and beyond our regular, here's what the markets are doing and here are your layoffs for the day. Just some state of the economy stuff here. It's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag here tonight, definitely. But what's kind of nice is I've been able to, and I know you guys have probably heard me say this already, but I am getting really, really bored with the things that are going on with the Donald and the Biden because, let's face it. We hear the same thing over and over again every day. You know, your Daily Wires, your Blazes, your Fox News are telling you that Biden's definitely going to jail right now. Spoiler alert, he's not. And, you know, your MSNBC, CNN, and all of them are telling you Trump is going to jail. And it's inevitable. Nothing new is coming out of this. The leak of the indictment is the most newsworthy thing to come out of the Trump story since Mar-a-Lago. Since the indictment happened for that, realistically, it's the same thing. Oh, we're going to get him this time. But I do want to talk a bit about the leak and now the tying of people to the breach. Because I think that is going to be important on the fact of, if they can come after him, they can come after anybody. So we'll talk a bit about that and what that means. And we'll talk about the plane dropping an explosion, by the way, in Pennsylvania. I'll be talking a bit about what happened there. And my experience was something similar, which is actually faint because somehow I managed to sleep through that entire situation, but it's going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine, and Overruled with KTZed. Go check out all that great programming as we aim to bring you a better news and culture experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. For too long, we've all got our news and culture from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses and people who hate us. And no more. Don't do that anymore. Get your news and culture from people who are just like you, who've had to make some of the same decisions that you've had to, and who really look at the world in a similar, maybe not the same, but similar worldview than you do. So go check out all that great programming, and let's get down into our news of the day. We're going to start with our finance. And we're going to start with the Dow. Let's get the live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing. Live chat at the bottom of the show tonight and a full review of everything that you guys are saying. I will intersperse and react to what you guys are saying as you are going, but there will be a full review of all the live chat for the day at the bottom of the show. So tell some friends, get some people in here. Let's get a live chat going. And if you are on Rumble, Instagram, main channels, YouTube, Twitch, DLive, feel free to weigh in and tell us what you think about what's going on with the news that you're seeing here today on the Dow. The Dow ended the day up after playing jump rope with the previous close throughout the day, and it just barely crested and came back up. The Dow sitting at 35,307.63. That is up 26.23 points or 0.074% on the day, so just barely eking out a win after spending actually the majority of the day trading day down. Couple peaks up over the top, but for the most part, nothing to write home about. It's a flat Dow today, so that's what we see coming off that. The futures look like, however, they took a very, very significant shot upward, so we'll be talking about that and what's happening with that and where that goes. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which is sitting at 29,415.20. That is $29,415 and 20 US cents. That is up on the day $139 and 30 US cents, or about 0.5% on your 5-day. Looking what happened out over the weekend, and actually it looks like it took a tumble. Just a fairly steady decline throughout the weekend, staying mostly steady from Friday onto a big drop over on Sunday before climbing back up and taking a fairly big spike before dropping back again. So a little bit all over the place over the weekend here, but if you're looking at Bitcoin, it looks like you did win today. Lost over the weekend and over the 5-day, but did win over the day, so congratulations. You got a little bit of Bitcoin on your day today, and your gas prices in the Madison area. Looks like there is some reprieve coming. How long it'll take to get to wherever you are at, well, we will see what happens with that, but looking at the Madison area, the same market that we've been looking at for the last 3 years, out on the east side of Madison, we are looking at 340, where we saw 370 on Friday. We are still seeing 370 on the west side, but usually when one side takes a tumble and drops down, that is, the other side is fairly quick to catch up with that. So we will see if that comes, and if you are in a market that has already dropped, congratulations, and maybe go and top off once again. If you're in a market that has yet to drop, maybe hold out for a couple days, maybe see if you can get a little bit more. Don't do one of those I know my car kinds of things, but definitely go and see what you have going on for that. And let's grab one from IVD for the day. From Investors Business Daily, B Keto 21 joining us over on the Instagram side. Welcome in. Dow Futures Fed Minutes Loom. Tesla restarts EV price war in China, from Scott Latonin. Dow Futures were a little changed ahead of Tuesday's open after the Dow Industrial rose 26 points on Monday. Tesla skidded after the company again cut prices in China on 2 Model Y vehicle trims, threatening to restart an EV price war. On the economic front this week, July retail sales on Tuesday will be closely watched after June's report showed smaller than expected increase as sales slowed for service stations and building material stores. Home building markets got a solid dose of data with builder sentiments from National Association of Home Builders on Tuesday and the Commerce Department's July housing starts and permits on Wednesday. Meanwhile, minutes from the Federal Reserve's latest policy meeting are out on Wednesday afternoon. Retail earnings take the spotlight this week, with results from Dow Jones names Walmart and Home Depot outside of retail. Cardinal Health, Cisco Systems on Holdings, and Palo Alto Networks will be several names to watch. On Monday, the Dow Industrial Average rose 0.1, while the S&P gained 0.6. The tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite finished up 1.05. EV giant Tesla skidded 1.2% on Monday on the upside. Nvidia surged more than 7% to regain its 50-day bullish fashion. Dow giants Apple and Microsoft finished higher on today's market action, with Apple and Microsoft both rising nearly 1%. Costco Wholesale, Expro, SLB, and Mercado Libre, as well as Dow Jones stock, Boeing, Intel, and Visa are among the best stocks to watch as the market's uptrend comes under increasing pressure. So, we've got a few things that are going on here. The Treasury yield is all the way back up to 4.18% as well, so we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Your layoffs report today coming from Axios, and your layoff today is CoinDesk. From Sarah Fisher. CoinDesk, the crypto media company that broke the story that led to the fall of crypto exchange FTX, and its founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, is eliminating positions according to an internal note from its CEO and staff obtained by Axios. The expected cuts are part of a broader effort meant to help the company curb costs to facilitate a sale. A source told Axios that roughly 40% of CoinDesk's editorial team, or 18 people, were being let go. CoinDesk parent, Digital Currency Group, is trying to finalize a deal to sell CoinDesk to an investor group for $125 million. The note itself didn't explain what roles were being eliminated or how many, but it noted that the cuts would predominantly hit the firm's media team. In the note, CoinDesk CEO Kevin Wirth said the company's leadership planned to detail more about the cuts in an all-hands meeting at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That is today. No details have been given about that yet. CoinDesk Business includes an award-winning editorial arm, CoinDesk TV, a CoinDesk Indices business and events. So, again, we're sitting in a situation where we're not seeing a lot of the engineers being removed from their positions, but it's a lot of the middle management. Or at this point, because CoinDesk's, their main source of income is what they do with the crypto exchanges, but we are seeing a cut on their secondary source, so we will see what happens with this. Let's see what's happening in the chat over here. Mogwai says, so I'm going to avoid the Monday evening mute. Yes, Mogwai looking out for me always. If I drop 15,000 feet in a plane, well, needless to say, something else will drop too. The Mogwai making a crap joke. Sugar, I enjoy playing with mixed bags. Geez, Lindsay, why are you still here? Dow being up is because I did that. Greatest economy since Jesus walked on water, says the Mogwai. Well, that is yet to be seen. We will see what happens with this. I got a couple more finance articles here for you today, looking in at what's happening with the inflation in the greatest economy in history from Fox Business. Inflation forcing Americans to spend $709 more US dollars per month than 2 years ago, say economists. That's actually about right, too. Honestly. And now, of course, with me taking a massive raise when I moved, including a little bit of overtime to help pad that off. Like, when I first transferred my job and started working at the place that I worked in Janesville rather than Madison, I saved a lot of money. I saved a buttload of money. Almost immediately saved a crap load of money. And I was banking money at the time. And I would say by the time that I left and came out and got this job, I was spending $400 to $500 more a month pretty easily. And I wasn't like poor, but I wasn't banking money like the way that I was before. And even now that I've taken the bigger job, but also seeing the food prices and everything else rise, I would say that $709 more a month is probably right on par with this. This is from Anders Hagstrom. Americans are spending $709 more a month on everyday goods and services than they did 2 years ago, according to Moody's. Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi made the statement on Friday on X, formerly known as Twitter, as part of his analysis of July's Consumer Price Index report. Despite the jarring increase in costs, Zandi says inflation is moderating, with just a 0.2% increase from June to July. But it's still 3.2% year over year, so... To be sure, the high inflation of the past 2+ years has done a lot of economic damage. Due to the high inflation, the typical household spent $202 more in July than they did a year ago to buy the same goods and services, and they spent $709 more than they did 2 years ago, Zandi wrote. But the trend lines look good and suggest inflation is set to moderate further. Vehicle prices will decline more, so too will electricity prices. When? And the growth in the cost in housing will slow further. The biggest worry is the jump in oil prices, which bears close watching, he added. Scorching hot inflation has created severe financial pressures for most U.S. households, which are forced to pay more for everyday necessities like food and rent. The burden is disproportionately borne by low-income Americans whose already stretched paychecks are heavily affected by price fluctuations. Consumers continue to see more reprieve in July. The price of used cars and trucks tumbled 1.3% over the month and are down 5.6% compared with the same time a year ago. Airline tickets also plummeted 8.1% in July, following declines in both April, May, and June. The data indicates that while inflation has fallen from a peak of 9.1, it remains well above the Fed's 2% target despite the aggressive interest rate hike campaign. The central bank approved 11 rate hikes since the course of 16 months, lifting the federal funds rate to the highest level since 2001. So, and I mean, that's an average, and some households are going to see more and some are going to be less, but that's not good news. An extra $709 a month, I mean, realistically, that's more than a week's pay at my old job. Not so much anymore, but at my old job, that was more than a week's pay. And that hurts a lot when you lose almost an entire week. So that is what we see coming from that. And on 401ks, from MarketWatch, ominous news as 401k hardship withdrawals rocket. From Brett Aarons. The number of people making hardship or emergency withdrawals from their 401k plans is soaring, despite low unemployment and rising real wages, a new report from Bank of America reveals. Well, I will believe it when I see rising real wages, but withdrawals in the April to June second quarter leapt an astonishing 36% compared to the same 3 months a year earlier, the bank says, citing data from company benefit plans for which Bank of America keeps the records. Those plans cover 4 million participants. It says withdrawals had also risen 12% from the first quarter. The number of people taking loans from the 401k plans also rose. The overall figures involved are still quite small. Just 0.5% of 401k participants, or roughly 1 in 200, took withdrawals. During the second quarter, the number of account holders borrowing from their 401k was 2.5%. But this trend is ominous for the economy and for Americans' retirement savings because it comes during an almost unprecedented boom. The unemployment rate is currently 3.5%, around levels typically associated with the Eisenhower-Johnson era's Hong Kong. There are 5 job openings for every 3 unemployed workers. The Bank of America data confirm a trend previously identified by investment giant Vanguard, which recently revealed that hardship withdrawals are among its clients hit a new high last year after a rising 42%. And again, when we look at the fact that we are seeing the wages jump, we're seeing the wages come up, and yet people are still having a hardship, it's because their dollar still doesn't go as far as it did. Yes, they're seeing real wage growth, compared to year over year, because something had to give in order for them to come up. But if you do, and I know that statistics don't run on a 2-year cycle, but that's kind of what I'd like to see, is a 2-year cycle, maybe even a 3rd-year cycle. See where wages are versus where they were in 2019 and especially in 2020. Because if you look at real wages there, I bet you'd see a much more dismal picture, and one that the Biden admin does not want to talk about. So that is your finance. I know we went a little extended on this one. Let's talk Houston. From Click to Houston, NBC. Large mulch fire continues to burn at Living Earth facility in northwest Houston. The Houston Fire Department continues to battle a large mulch fire that is still burning in northwest Houston. The fire began on Sunday and was located at the 5800 block of Crawford Road at the Living Earth mulch facility. Fire crews were called just after 2 p.m. According to officials, the fire was originally on one mound of mulch but spread to engulf others. Since Sunday, crews were being rotated out so firefighters would not overheat while working throughout the night. The fire department says there is currently no danger to the community at this time. No firefighters or civilians have been reported injured. Air quality in the area continues to be monitored. So, a few things to look at with this. Now, they say that this is contained, which I believe them. And I will say that smoldering mulch, because it is basically dried powdered wood, is probably going to take a lot of time to put out. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, they could use some rain right about now for this. But one of the things to look at with this is the fact that this is, like, we're just coming off of a major wildfire, which has conspiracy theories flying. I'm going to be completely honest with you, some of them I actually believe, because a lot of it would make sense. There are people pointing out that none of the trees were touched in the wildfires, and it only seemed to be buildings and everything else. I have questions about that. I don't have enough data to make an allegation, but I do have questions about that. And then almost immediately, in, again, probably one of the hardest materials to put a fire out, the only one that I think would be harder would be tires. Now we're in Texas with a massive mulch fire. And I legitimately believe that if this had not been caught in time, this could have gone out to wildfire status yet again. It's hot, it's dry, it's Texas. I understand that it's oceanfront still, but it's hot and it's dry and it's Texas. Let's be absolutely realistic about this. And just the one spark, and especially with mulch, because it's light, it can get carried off in the wind. An ember, an ash, or something else like that. And the next thing you know, half of the Gulf Coast is on fire. So this is, again, this is not something that's an imminent threat to the neighborhood, but this would be one to watch. And I'm a little bit surprised, although not completely, that we didn't see more coverage of this as we went. A little bit from Fox 26, Houston. Houston mulch fire at Living Earth on Crawford could take a week to extinguish. And again, that is a long time. That is a full week for an ember to just do its embery thing. From Fox 26 Digital, no author given. A mulch fire that began at the Living Earth facility in northwest Houston on Sunday could take up to a week to extinguish, officials say. The Houston Fire Department says the fire has been contained and their firefighters left the scene around 5 a.m. Monday. The operation has been turned over to a private fire protection company that will continue to extinguish the fire. Houston Fire was dispatched to the fire around 2:27 p.m. on Sunday. In the 5800 block of Crawford Street, a plume of smoke could be seen coming from the area. The fire department says that after battling the blaze for about an hour, it showed signs of improvement. However, the winds then picked up, which led to a surge in fire intensity and reduced visibility from the thick black smoke. fire started to spread towards a warehouse, but firefighters were able to stop it, officials say. So, again, as of right now, everything seems to be in order, contained. I'll be watching for this one over the next week to see if something does pop up with this. We're going to shift gears, though. We're going to shift our focus and look at Hawaii. Starting with a video with a caption from Mike Cernovich. Cernovich saying, Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz can't even hide his smirk as Maui burned. He's seeing dollar signs for huge Democrat donors, Oprah, Zuckerberg, and other billionaires who will scoop up the land and steal it from native-born Hawaiians. Let's listen.
Brian Schatz is the Democratic senator from Hawaii who shared these images from a devastated Maui during his tour of the area yesterday, and he is here to tell us about it now. Senator, it's great to have you under awful circumstances, and like I said to Senator Hirono last night, everybody I've talked to and seen is thinking about folks in Hawaii and pulling for you and sending love and concern. What did you see yesterday when you were able to tour the parts that were so devastated?
Thanks, Chris, for doing this, and thank you for your kind words. And I just want to thank everybody across the country and across the world for the solidarity and the support and the money that is pouring in, because this is a disaster ongoing. We are still in disaster response. We are not in the rebuilding phase. But what I saw was it was as though a bombing run had happened on Lahaina. It's flattened. It is razed to the ground. The sugar mill is intact. The lighthouse is intact. The banyan tree is still standing, but it's unclear whether it or not it will survive. But basically everything else is gone. We've got thousands of people now in temporary shelters. We're trying to restore power and telecommunications, but this is every bit as bad as the pictures. We walked down Front Street, and it is a smoldering, toxic mess where it used to be this vibrant town of Native Hawaiians and Filipinos and Portuguese and Caucasians and tourists from all over the planet, and people surfing and fishing and watching the whales and having a beer and dancing hula. And it is now what you see on the screen. So it's a devastating time for the people of Hawaii, and we appreciate the solidarity as we navigate through the next several weeks and months and years.
Well, I don't know, and I will give the benefit of the doubt to say that he may be devastated still, just even if he's going to be getting mega donor money. But, I mean, this was a captive interview, too, so Chris Hayes is not going to ask him any difficult questions about where the start was or anything else like that. So that is what he has to say about this. What Biden has to say from the Daily Wire. Biden, after lounging on beach, says no comment on deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history. From Hank Berrien. Joe Biden, who has often been hailed by the left as a decent, compassionate person, was at the beach on Delaware on Sunday. When asked about the enormous tragedy in Maui, where the deadliest wildfire in the U.S. in the last 100 years has now claimed at least 96 lives and possibly more. According to Josh Green, the Hawaiian governor, the damage from the fires that utterly ravaged the historic town of Lahaina could amount to $6 billion. The compassionate response from the president as he was leaving the beach, no comment. Biden is the same man who bragged on Twitter in February 2020 when he was running for president. Hey, man, empathy matters. Compassion matters, man. And we have to reach out to one another and heal this country. And that's what I'll do as president. In the same post, Biden showed himself saying, hey, when you have a real problem, man, and it's devastating to you, and someone comes up, man, and says, I know how you feel. But someone comes to you and says, I've been through this, man. I can tell you I know how you feel. And you immediately say, tell me. Because all the people are looking for me to say, man, you made it. And you can look at them and you can intuitively, I guess there's a way through, man. I guess I can make this. I guess I can make it. In April of this year, Biden told a group of kids, "I have 6 grandchildren, man. I'm crazy about them. They smell good. I give them a sniff, and I speak to them every day, man." This, of course, the Daily Wire complaining about Navy Joan. But, I mean, when we look at this and we see what's happening with this and where this goes, and one of the things with Biden is he cannot go off script, which means if a reporter comes up to him without his press pool and his press corps up there, which I don't know how a reporter can get up to him so quickly, where is his Secret Service detail? But if he can get up there and be confronted so quickly and doesn't have a prepared speech sitting there waiting for him, he can't answer. But that's what we have for that. All right, let's get the Trump stuff out of the way. All the way down to the USA Today article here. So I got a couple here first with the images. Kingsley Cortez saying Democrat DAs are now indicting before grand juries vote. With the case details here, case number. With charges, violation of the RICO Act, solicitation a violation of oath by public officer, conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. That'll get thrown out almost immediately because he was a public officer. Conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. Conspiracy to commit false statements in writings. Conspiracy to commit filing false documents. Conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. Conspiracy to commit false statements in writings. Filing false documents. Solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. False statements in writings. Solicitation of violations by oath of public officer. And false statements in writings. So a couple of these are process crimes, especially in the after the fact. Because, I mean, the last 2 charges that they're putting up here happened in 9/17 of 2021. So 9 months after the fact. But a lot of this looks like spaghetti on the wall at this point. And what's interesting here is where they did the RICO Act. Violation of the Georgia RICO Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act was 11/4/2020, which, if I remember correctly, hello DM Ryan, is Election Day. Let me pull up a calendar here and make sure that I have that right. But I believe that was Election Day that year. Oh, that's 2021. I mean, all the way back to 2020. November 2020. No, that was the day after Election Day. So, before all the votes were counted, they're dropping a RICO charge on him. That's a little suspicious to me. Not only is that a little bit suspicious to me, but that is telling me that something was in already on this. That they're waiting for something on this. 12/7/20, I believe that was the perfectly legal phone call. And 12/6, conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, which, again, I don't know why he would be impersonating a public officer, because on 12/6, he was a public officer. So, a lot of this up here, now people are saying, this is obviously a draft, but nothing will be posted. No, this was a leak. MU is saying the same thing. Banana Republic, the Atlanta area DA, accidentally published the indictment against the president prior to the convening the grand jury. The fix is in. This isn't about justice, it's about election interference. I would question, by the way, if, and I'm going to give Fannie Willis the benefit of the doubt on this one, if this was something where she herself did not sign off on, if this is not even something that she had interest in pursuing and instead was something where a staffer or somebody with less experience, more of an agenda, put this out there, again, to be intimidating. Because no prosecutor in their right mind would give a defense team advance notice of what they're going to try to go out and go after. Until they have to. Until the court forces them to. So, with that being said, though, that is probably going to be coming down in, I would say, within 2 weeks. I'm going to put the timeline out a little bit further than some of the other people are saying, because, I mean, the Page Shills and the MAGA people are all saying it's coming absolutely this week with no question. It could come this week, but I'm going to say it could go out all the way until not this coming Friday, but the next. We'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one, though, about the preparations from ABC News. Georgia's Fulton County prepares for possible Trump indictment as some questions impact. From Layli Ipsa, rather. In Georgia's Fulton County, barriers have been put up. The roads in front of the county courthouse is closed, and the court case hearings have been encouraged to go virtual, as Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is expected to soon announce the charging decision in her investigation into former President Trump and his allies' alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election in the state. A reminder that when they're putting the fencing up out there and they're calling in the National Guard and getting their police chief police to stop approving days off and lining everybody up and jackbooting everybody, that is an intimidation tactic. They are reminding you that they have all the power and all the cards. And you dare not question their motive. Or redress your grievances, for that matter. Willis recently signaled that her team is ready to go as she prepares to present evidence to a grand jury that could decide whether to approve charges against Trump, who has already been indicted 3 times in the special counsel's investigation into election interference. The special counsel's classified documents probe in the Manhattan DA's hush money case. Trump has pled not guilty to all charges and has denied all wrongdoing. Willis' investigation centers around Trump's January 2nd phone call to Georgia Secretary of State. Okay, so I was wrong on the charges. Because when I said impersonate public officer, I'd said, was this December 6th? Whereas no, the phone call didn't come until 1/2. So that'll be your solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. I'm a little curious then what they all did on 12/6 and 12/7 then, or what they're trying to hit him with. And during which Trump urged Ravensburger to find 11,780 votes, the exact number the former president needed to win the state. Despite the hubbub, some in Fulton County have questioned the purpose of another indictment, voicing sentiments of a redundant political cycle that they say won't impact their vote much. It's a show of force. It's the Democrat DA and the government at large coming out and getting the chance to come back and remind you, don't you question the narrative. Look at all these jackboots that I have sitting out here. So there is that. And I want to talk just a bit about the voting machine breach, the voting system breach that was revealed over the weekend. CNN with the exclusive. Georgia prosecutors have messages showing Trump's team is behind voting system breach from Zachary Cohen and Sarah Murray. Atlanta area prosecutors investigating efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia are in possession of text messages and emails directly connecting members of Trump's legal team to the early January 2021 voting system breach in Coffee County, sources tell CNN. Fulton County DA Fannie Willis is expected to seek charges against more than a dozen individuals when her team presents its case before a grand jury next week. Why would she be seeking charges for something that happened in Coffee County? That's interesting. Several individuals involved in the voting system's breach in Coffee County are among those who may face criminal charges in the sprawling criminal probe. Investigators in the Georgia criminal probe have long suspected the breach was not an organic effort, sprung from sympathetic Trump supporters in rural and heavily Republican Coffee County, a county Trump won by nearly 70% of the vote. They have gathered evidence indicating it was a top-down push by Trump's team to access sensitive voting software, according to people familiar with the situation. Trump allies attempted to access voting systems after the 2020 election as part of the broader push to produce evidence that could back up the former president's baseless claims of widespread fraud, honkety-honk, editorialize, while Trump's January 2021 call to Raffensperger, an effort to put forward fake slates of electors, have long been considered key pillars of Willis's criminal probe. The voting system breach in Coffee County quietly emerged as an area of focus for investigators roughly a year ago. Since then, new evidence has been slowly uncovered about the role of Trump's attorneys, the operatives they hired, and how the breach, as well as others like it in other key states, factored into broader plans for overturning the election. Together, the text messages and other court documents show Trump's lawyers and a group of hired operatives sought to access Coffee County's voting systems in the days before January 6, 2021, as the former president's allies continued a desperate hunt for any evidence of widespread fraud that they could use to delay the certification of Biden's electoral victory. Last year, a former Trump official testified under oath to the House January 6 Select Committee that plans to access voting systems in Georgia were discussed in meetings at the White House, including during an Oval Office meeting on December 18, 2020, that included Trump. 6 days before the pro-Trump operatives gained access to the voting systems, the local elections official who allegedly helped facilitate the breach sent a written invitation to attorneys working for Trump, according to text messages obtained by CNN. That includes these text messages and others like it that were originally unearthed as part of a long-running civil suit focused on election security in Georgia. Now, this is interesting, by the way. If Trump was involved in this, now, what I want to say is that for Jack Smith's case, the best thing that Fannie Willis would be able to figure out and do in this would be to figure out that the Donald himself was not involved in the meeting. I'm going to tell you why. Now, mind you, the fact that this is going on and he was there in the meeting kind of blows a hole in the entire case that Trump knowingly lost the election, because he's out there looking for evidence that he didn't, which means that he believes that he didn't. So if he were to be involved in this at some point, it would be scummy and it would be shady, but it would completely blow a hole in the side of Jack Smith's case. Completely. Because all four of Jack Smith's charges, as weak as they are, involve intent, which means they involve the former president knowing that he lost the election and still trying to change it anyway. If they're digging for evidence, that's point blank clear that they didn't believe in their hearts that they lost. Now, if there were discussions on trying to get in there and tamper or change something, that's a completely different story. But if they're just out there searching for evidence, then they don't believe that they lost. They believe that they're going to go in and find something. I'm surprised this case was able to and allowed to hit the light of day, honestly. written invitation to access voting systems on January 1st, days ahead of the January 7 voting systems breach. Catherine Fries, an attorney working with Giuliani, Powell, and other Trump allies, shared a written invitation to examine voting systems in Coffee County with a group of Trump allies. That group included members of Sullivan Strickler, a firm hired by Trump's attorneys to examine voting systems in the small, heavily Republican Georgia county, according to text messages obtained by CNN. That same day, Fries sent a letter of invitation to Coffee County, Georgia, to former NYPD Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik, who was working with Giuliani to find evidence that would back up their, because they have to editorialize it, baseless claims of potential widespread voter fraud. And that widespread word's got to be in there too, according to court documents filed as part of an ongoing civil case. Fries then notified operatives who carried out the Coffee County breach and others working directly with Giuliani that Trump's team had secured written permission, the texts show. Yeah, again, this blows a hole in Jack Smith's case. And I don't know if Fani Willis has realized this. Not that those charges had a lot of strength to begin with, but Horwad's Million joined us over on the Instagram side. Welcome. So that's what's going on in Trump world right now. No indictment yet, but, you know, the whole world will end again once that drops. Let's talk about RFK from Politico. RFK Jr. backs 15-week federal ban on abortion, then reverses himself. From David Cohen over at Politico. Democratic presidential candidate RFK Jr. on Sunday said he would support a federal ban on abortion after the first 3 months of pregnancy, but his campaign later said he misunderstood the question. Well, and again, one of the things to look at with that is the fact that, with the exception of a few people who I think were trying to come back out and tank what happened in 2022, well, tank the Democrat or Republican lead in 2022, there is not an appetite for a federal abortion ban. Now, state and local levels, there's an appetite for it, but there is not an appetite for a federal ban. It was stated right in the decision. Hey, this is a states' rights thing. The federal government shouldn't be getting involved in this anyway. And that was, by the way, the rhetoric, even among the most ardent pro-lifers, was, why can't we just do this at a state level? So RFK himself even goes above and outside of what the people on the ground at least believed on the day of the overturn. Now, some ardent pro-lifers, I do believe, have gone on and come aboard the federal ban, but speaking to NPC from the Iowa State Fair, Kennedy said, "I believe that this decision to abort a child should be up to the women during the first 3 months of life," but added, Once a child is viable outside the womb, I think that the state has an interest in protecting the child. He said he would sign a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks or 21 weeks of pregnancy if he were elected president. But his campaign subsequently said Kennedy did not mean to support any federal limits on abortion. Today, Mr. Kennedy misunderstood a question posed to him by an NPC reporter in the crowd, a noisy exhibit hall at the Iowa State Fair. His campaign said Mr. Kennedy's position on abortion is that it is always the woman's right to choose. He does not support legislation banning abortion. NBC reporter Ali Vitale posted a string of abortion questions to Kennedy, who answered yes to, so would you cap it at 15 weeks? She followed up by asking, or 21 weeks, to which he said, yes, 3 months. The exchange continued, and Vitale said, I'm surprised to hear you say you'd cap it. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised too, but there is that avenue of things. And what's wild to me about this, probably the most wild thing that there is about this entire argument, is the fact that the people who support 9 months up to point of birth, and even sometimes after crowning, always point out and say we should be more like Europe in most of the things we do. Most of Europe is capped at 15 weeks. The vast majority of Europe is capped at 15 weeks, in fact. And again, I don't believe... Honestly, a federal ban is just going to make a black market for it, which is even more horrifying for it. I don't believe in government intervention. You guys know that about me. I hate the government. And I don't trust them to... Even if I were in support of this, because I'm fairly pro-life in my own life. You know that those idiot politicians would all have a carve out to protect their families and some of their friends and some of their big business partners. You know that's true. The government doesn't do anything that doesn't benefit the government, so... But they're telling us that he walked that back in a hurry. CNN, RFK Jr.'s campaign, tries to walk back his support of 3-month federal abortion ban from Aaron Pellish. RFK Jr.'s campaign on Sunday evening quickly tried to walk back comments the Democrat presidential candidate had made earlier in the day to support a nationwide abortion restriction after the first 3 months of pregnancy. Kennedy, who's waging a long-shot bid for the nomination against President Biden, had said that he believes the decision to abort a child should be up to the women during the first 3 months of life, but that the state has an interest in restricting abortions after the first trimester, and that he would support a federal law banning abortions after that period. I don't know, it doesn't sound to me like he misunderstood the question. It sounds to me like he knew exactly what was going on. The campaign statement came shortly after Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, praised Kennedy for the position he outlined on NBC, calling it a stark contrast to the Democrat Party's radical stance. SBA Pro-Life America President Marjorie Dannenfelser called Kennedy one of the few prominent Democrats aligned with the consensus of the people today, and used the comment to NBC to criticize Biden on abortion. In a statement on Monday, Dannenfelser suggested Kennedy's campaign was forced to walk back the comment by pro-abortion rights groups. Oh, absolutely it was. Wait, was there a question that it wasn't? Did somebody actually believe that they weren't forced to walk it back? So that's what CNN has to say. In probably one of the cringiest videos that I've seen, but also reminding you that Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he is early Gen Y. But he is going to lose himself in front of people. Let's have a listen. This is Vivek Ramaswamy from the Iowa State Fair.
Now the clock's run out, time's up, over, blast, and back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity, oh, there goes gravity. He's so mad, but he won't give up, daddy. He's going back to he knows his own daddy. He's own daddy, he's close. He don't matter, he's so sad, he goes back to his mobile home. That's when it's back to the lab again. Yo, it's so rap, so you better go capture this moment and hope it don't catch you. Lose yourself in the music, the moment, that was all.
Now, some of the hate for this, I will come out and say that I think was undeserved. I mean, who hasn't done the car karaoke version of this song at some point? I don't like rap music and I know this song. But I mean, as far as Vivek goes, it's like he is showing his age. He's trying to be a bit more personable. Again, I don't think he's going anywhere in the campaign for this season. But I think that he's setting him up really, really well for 28 if it should come to that. Because I don't think Trump is going to run again in 28. And by the way, as I look at everything coming out today, I don't think Republicans have a chance in hell of unseating Biden for 2024. And it's not because Biden has done such a spectacular job. He hasn't. It's not because the economy is great. It's not. It's not because gas prices are low. They're not. It's not because I anticipate them being low by Election Day. They might be. I don't think we're going to get down to Trump levels, but there's a good chance that we see high twos by Election Day. Between 270 and 290. National average. But the reality of life is that Trump voters and DeSantis voters cannot stop insulting each other. And again, if Trump gets the nomination, I think it's probably more likely that he wins, because a lot of the DeSantis people are vote red or we're all dead. So they'll hold their nose and say, yeah, we got insulted by the Trump people, but we have to make sure that Biden gets gone. But on the other side of that, the Trump people, the former Democrats in the Trump camp, are going to remember all the nasty things that the DeSantis people said to him. Which, by the way, again, both sides need to stop doing that. Both ways, by the way. I'll criticize you both for this, but the former Democrats in the Trump camp are going to take every one of those insults to heart, and every time that they said, hey, we don't need you to win, and they're going to say, okay, well, fuck you, then I'll stay home. And what's funny is they'll actually come back and try to pull the old boomer line again of, oh, you're staying home, that's a vote for Biden. You're going to hear a lot of that this cycle. Like a lot. Your vote for a third party is a vote for the politician that I don't like. Your vote to stay home is a vote for the politician I don't like. All right, what else do we have here? From the Des Moines Register, Vivek Ramaswamy raps to Lose Yourself at Governor Kim Reynolds' Fair Side Chat. From Bill Jones. Vivek Ramaswamy lost himself in the moment Saturday morning as he rapped to Eminem's Lose Yourself. Ramaswamy spoke at 8:30 a.m. Saturday at Kim Reynolds' Fair Side Chat at JR's South Fork Ranch inside the Iowa State Fairgrounds as he took pictures with fans and attendees. Ramaswamy put on a red hat, grabbed a microphone, and started rapping to Eminem's Lose Yourself, which I'm sure is going to come up with a lot of complaints. Hey man, why this evil Republican, he be using my song? He's a white supremacist. That kind of thing. Just prior, he had told Reynolds the 2002 hit was his favorite walkout song at political events. The song won an Oscar in 2003 for Best Original Song in the movie 8 Mile, which, by the way, I was probably one of the first people to see that movie. Except for the people who skipped school that day. A girl I was dating at the time wanted to see it in the theater, like the day it came out. And we did it in one of the Milwaukee suburbs on the south side. Ramaswamy has made reaching out to young voters a hallmark of his campaign at age 38. So I'm older than a presidential candidate. Holy crap. It's official. I'm older than a presidential candidate. He's the youngest candidate to seek the Republican nomination Friday night. He had a meet and greet at the Jalapeno Pete's where he posed for selfies with young voters. Katie Howard, 67 of Wetumpka, heard Ramaswamy speak for the fourth time on Saturday morning. On Friday, she volunteered at a campaign event of his at the fair. She said, he's bringing young people to the campaign, Howard said. I worked that booth for several hours and I haven't seen that many young people approach a politician ever. So, There you go. Lose yourself. In the moment. You own this. You better never let it go. Maybe I should use that as my intro sometime. Jungle Forever says a dog daycare flooded here in DC today with many dead dogs. I will put that. Ooh. Yeah, looks like this is fairly recent too. That'll be on the stack for tomorrow. Thank you for the news tip. If you ever have news tips and they're off hours when I'm not on air, you can hit the Discord. You can hit me up on Twitter. That is at JEdgar102. You can tweet them out to me, or X them out to me, I should say, over on x.com. But there is a channel in the Discord specifically for giving news tips. I do vet them, and I don't always use the same source that you did, because I know it's cringy to say that it's like Tim Pool, but I hold the Tim Pool standard of I use only green check verified sources. I don't use sources that are on a conservative or a Democrat blog. I very rarely use MSNBC, but I always try to follow up and find something that's green check verified to go with the story, and that will be, I've got some stories up for that one already. And thank you for the news tip. From my neck of the woods, Brian Tyler Cohen. Wisconsin Republicans are now saying they may move to impeach newly elected state Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasewicz if she rules to overturn the state's gerrymandered election maps. Which, I mean, they should. Because the special interests that were involved in her selection, I should say, had her ruling already written for her before she ever got into the race. Which calls into a conflict of interest. And I love, by the way, how Madison Democrats have no problem with special interests getting involved in something like this if it goes into something that goes their way. And this is a total special interest situation. I want to read from the Wisconsin Examiner, which, by the way, is green check verified. It's NewsGuard certified, and I didn't believe that when I started reading this, because I've read the Wisconsin Examiner. It is a liberal blog. But it's green check verified, so it's there. Voss says Republicans may consider impeaching Protasewicz over redistricting comments from Henry Redmond. Assembly Speaker Robin Voss said last week that Republican lawmakers could consider impeaching recently sworn-in Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasewicz if she doesn't recuse herself from lawsuits challenging the state's political boundaries. Voss and Republicans have regularly criticized Protasewicz for stating during her campaign this spring that the state's legislative maps are rigged. Experts say Wisconsin's maps are among the worst gerrymandered in the nation, giving Republicans a near veto-proof majority in both houses despite the state's almost 50-50 political split. Well, and I will point out to the Democrats in my state, you have gathered yourself into 6 congressional districts or assembly districts in this state. I'm sorry, 8. 3 in Dane County, 4 in Milwaukee County, and 1 in Brown County. If you want to affect change, spread out. Although living among the rural parts of the state may scar some of these people for life. Voss said in a radio interview with WSAU last week that Protasewicz should recuse herself because she had prejudged the case, so she absolutely did. If there's any semblance of honor on the state Supreme Court left, you cannot have a person who runs for the court prejudging a case and being open about it. And then acting on the case as if you're an impartial observer, he said, "You cannot have a judge who said, the maps are rigged because she bought into the argument that's why we're winning elections and not the quality of our candidates." And then she sits on that trial acting like she's going to listen and hear both sides fairly. That just can't happen. 2 lawsuits challenging the maps were filed in the weeks after Protasevich was sworn in, which flipped control of the Supreme Court to a liberal majority for the first time in 15 years. During her campaign, Protasevich said in interviews during a candidate forum that the maps were unfair. Yeah, that should be a recusal. That absolutely should. But there again, by the way, that's a little bit of rules for thee and not for me kind of thing. One of the reasons, and we saw this a lot during the swearing-in ceremonies for all 3 of the Trump justices, and you didn't necessarily see it during Jumanji Brown Jackson, her hearings. There's a reason for that. It's because they were trying to get a prejudgment from the candidates for the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, on abortion, so they'd be forced to recuse themselves if a challenge to Roe came up. It's why all 3 of them came out and said that we cannot sit down and talk about a case that hasn't even come forward yet. That would be improper. But here's Janet Protasevich coming right out and saying, and of course, Protasevich is not there for the maps, although that would be a happy little addition for Wisconsin Democrats. Protasevich is not there for the abortion question either, by the way, which, that's what put her in there, but that's not what she was installed into her position for. Janet Protasevich is there for one reason and one reason only: to overturn Act 10 and give the union untoward power in this state again. That's what she's always been there for. And the people that were running campaigns against her and everything couldn't see the forest for the trees because all they could see was, oh, the dead babies. And of course, no political strategy whatsoever. So that is what the Wisconsin Examiner has to say. All right, let's talk about the plane from Insider. An American Airlines flight dropped 15,000 feet in 3 minutes after a possible pressurization issue. Wonder how many ears popped. Wonder how many bladders popped. From Hannah Getahoon. An American Airlines flight from North Carolina to Florida dropped tens of thousands of feet in a matter of minutes on Thursday, resulting in a scary experience for passengers on board. American Airlines Flight 5916 from Charlotte to Douglas International in North Carolina to Gainesville Regional Airport in Florida descended nearly 15,000 feet in just 3 minutes. Over the course of 7 minutes, the flight descended from about 30,000 feet to just over 10,000, flight records show. Man. I like flying, but now I question it. According to a statement from American Airlines shared with Fox Business, a possible pressurization issue resulted in the flight crew having to descend suddenly. The flight landed safely at its intended destination of Gainesville Regional Airport. While on flight, the crew received an indication of a possible pressurization issue and immediately and safely descended to a lower altitude. A spokesperson told the publication, "We apologize to our customers for any inconvenience and thank our team for their professionalism." One passenger, University of Florida professor Harrison Hove, told local North Carolina station WBTV the ordeal was really scary. "Yeah, I bet it was. We started to descend really fast, and once we were breathing, You started to smell this burning smell, so that's when I got really nervous, Hove told the outlet. The initial moments were really scary and really freaky, because your mind wanders and you have to, and you have a void of information. Well, you have a void of something else too, but like, that's a completely different story. No injuries were reported as a result of the drop, WBTV reported. American Airlines did not immediately respond to the insider's request for comment sent outside of regular business hours. So that's fun. And just a reminder, losing 20,000 feet of altitude mid-flight in just a few minutes, that's no joke. In addition to the forward direction you're going, that's 4 miles down. Not quite 4 miles. A mile is only 5,218 feet. So it's like 3.5 miles. That's 3.5 miles of in just a few minutes. That'll scare anybody, except for a Navy fighter pilot who does more than that on a moment's notice while they're doing flying maneuvers, but still. The home explosion. Reminder to the Instagram audience. If I'm watching a video, you can't see the video because I can't broadcast the video out to the Instagram side. So hit that link in the description to come to the YouTube feed. And you can see everything that we're watching. You can hear the music, watch the videos, and see the news article broadcast up above me. Drama alert. Home explosion killing 5 people in Pennsylvania captured via door camera. Let's watch. So, there definitely were some injuries and some deaths to this one, unfortunately, so F's in the chat for them. Let's read one from our friends on the other side of the pond about this one from the BBC. Father and son among 5 dead in Pennsylvania home explosion. From Bernd de Busman Jr. A 38-year-old man and his 12-year-old son are among 5 people killed in a house explosion in Pennsylvania over the weekend. F. The 12 August blast in Plum, a Pittsburgh suburb, left 3 others injured, including 1 person in critical condition. 3 other structures in the neighborhood were destroyed and at least a dozen others damaged. Investigators are working to determine the cause of the explosion. According to the officials in Pennsylvania's Allegheny County, they received an emergency 911 call at about 10:30 local time on Saturday. Police and firefighters arrived on the scene and reported that there were people trapped under the debris. It appeared as if one house had exploded and 2 others were engulfed in fire. Multiple other homes were damaged and windows blown out, they said in a Facebook post. Doorbell camera footage, which has not been independently verified by the BBC, shows a massive explosion sending smoke and debris into the sky above the neighborhood. 5 bodies were later recovered from the scene. Officials say it's still unclear who was home and if any visitors were in the area at the time, complicating efforts to identify the deceased. Identification is expected to take some time as it will involve the use of dental records and potential DNA. For formal identification, Allegheny County said on X, the social media network formerly known as Twitter, So, terrible thing. What I would guess most likely happened when I see something like this, and the amount of shockwave that was able to get this far and actually blow things off the side of this house, is gas leak. That is exactly where I would go with something like this. And I've seen something like that happen, by the way. Well, not seen it. I managed to sleep through it. I don't know how. People were saying they felt the shockwave. This happened in Kenosha. This happened about Midtown Kenosha, and people felt the shockwave all the way up on the north side, 5 to 6 miles away. They said they felt it at UW Parkside, which is just about on the county line. Meanwhile, me, being 8 blocks away from where it happened, didn't feel a damn thing. Of course, I was in a drunk sleep on a waterbed when it happened. Yeah, I get to work that next morning, and people are asking me if I felt the thing, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And I don't go, because to go to work, I went to the other direction, but yeah, no idea. I didn't even feel it. But that's what it was when it happened in Kenosha. It was, they were doing what they called the Kenosha Improvement Project, where they were taking some of the dilapidated houses in the Uptown area, the 22nd Avenue area, and going through and remodeling them, getting them ready to go, and, you know, all the utilities were all there and on and everything, because they were working actively in these houses. And what most people have suspected happened is people were in there, and if I remember correctly, it was on a cold day. Yeah, it was, because it was in January when it happened. And people were in there stealing copper fittings to go back and sell. The homeless were in there stealing copper fittings to sell. And they uncapped a gas line, and it just filled the house with gas, and the heater probably kicked on at some point, and something like that. Something like we saw in the video. So, 5 people lost among us, 3 more injured. Very sad day in Pennsylvania, and a pretty intense blast. And 3 homes destroyed as well. Alright, let's grab these last couple here. We're going to get out of here really early tonight. Not a lot of live chat to go through. If you do want to get some last minute messages in, we'll go through these last 3 really quick, and then I will go through and review the live chat for the day. Not much, unfortunately. Wish the Rumble crowd would get into this a little bit more. That's what I wish for. Because I know you can be a little bit spicier on that platform. Alright, from Fox News. Far-right activist Ammon Bundy, oh yeah, far-right, arrested in Idaho on outstanding warrant, could remain jailed all weekend. Fact check, he's out. From Danielle Wallace. Far-right activist Ammon Bundy, who ran an unsuccessful gubernatorial bid against Republican Idaho Governor Brad Little, was reportedly arrested on an outstanding warrant. Bundy's account on X, formerly Twitter, shared video that showed deputies placing Bundy in handcuffs and escorting him out of the banquet hall. Ammon was arrested this evening at his son's football banquet. Gather at Gem County Sheriff's Office, and Emmett, if you can, we believe that he is at Gem County Jail. Please, if you can't make it, start making calls complaining about this continued harassment of such a wonderful man. Thank you, the post reads, sharing a link to the Idaho Statesman. KTVB first reported Friday that Bundy was arrested at an Emmett High School football fundraiser on a warrant for contempt charges connected to his legal fight with St. Luke's Health System. The Statesman reported that Bundy remained in custody at the Gem County Jail on Saturday, citing a sergeant with the sheriff's office. The sergeant told the paper that Bundy's bond was set at $10,000 and had not been posted as of Saturday morning. If he doesn't post bail, he's to appear on Monday before a judge in Gem County and then transfer to Ada County, Sergeant said. District Judge Lynn Norton of Idaho's 4th issued an arrest warrant after Bundy allegedly violated orders against witness harassment and intimidation related to the since resolved St. Luke's Regional Health lawsuit. In July, a jury decided that Bundy, who had led a takeover of Federal Wildlife Refuge in Oregon, an associate and 3 other groups must pay more than $50 million in damages for accusing a hospital of child trafficking and harassing medical staff. The lawsuit brought by St. Luke's Regional Health accused Bundy and Diego Rodriguez of making defamatory statements against the hospital and its employees after Rodriguez's infant grandson was removed from his family for several days and taken to St. Luke's amid concerns for his health. The emergency room physician, Dr. Rachel Thomas, testified that the 10-month-old baby's stomach was distended, his eyes were hollow, and was able to sit up, reminding her of severely malnourished babies that she had treated in Haiti, according to the Statesman. Police said at the time the medical personnel determined the child was malnourished and had lost weight. Bundy responded by urging his followers to protest at the hospital and the homes of the Child Protection Service workers, law enforcement officers, and others involved in the child protection case. No, don't do that. I mean, protest at the hospital if you must. But don't go to the people's homes. We had an argument about that with Kavanaugh just last year. Bundy, who didn't attend the trial nor hire a lawyer, saying it would be too costly, denied in a YouTube video that the baby was mistreated, and said law enforcement and hospital staff put him at risk by removing him from his mother. The baby was healthy except for suffering from cyclic vomiting syndrome, Bundy said. Unable to keep anything down except for his mother's breast milk, the hospital said Bundy and Rodriguez orchestrated a smear campaign against it. And again, I don't know, because I didn't follow the story at the time, which direction this goes, or if the baby was malnourished or not. But given somebody who's been as harassed by the government as Amon Bundy is, I mean, I can buy what Amon Bundy is saying if he was being harassed. But I don't know. And I will say again, don't go to the people's homes. That is wrong. That is what leftoids do. Because it is wrong. But he is out on bail at this point. From AZ Central, in Arizona, car batteries lead short, exhausting lives. Here's why. I can tell you that without reading the article. Because it's really fucking hot, and they're getting cooked constantly. Year-round, from Karina Bland. Cold shortens the life of a battery, and hot shortens the life of a battery. You boil off the acid, you don't get the proper temperature for the proper chemical reaction to create and store the charge. They swell, they boil. I glanced at the screen of my buzzing phone. It was Bernie, my mechanic. I like Bernie. He once stayed on the phone with me while I was an hour outside of San Diego, my transmission whining, to be sure I got there safely. But I dropped off the car the previous afternoon under the battery light on my dashboard glowing red. Red lights are never good news. My alternator was bad and I needed a new battery. I just bought a battery, I wailed. Actually, just was a stretch. It had been almost 2 years, but should batteries last longer? The heat takes its toll, Bernie explained in a soothing, sorry to have to deliver the bad news tone. Thanks, Arizona. The battery contains liquid and the heat causes it to evaporate. Coupled with running the air conditioning, charging our cell phones, and driving in stop-and-go traffic, the oven-like temperatures sap a vehicle's battery in 2 to 3 years. You can prolong your battery's life by starting it with the AC off, keeping the terminals clean, and keeping an eye on the water level. If you top it off yourself, use distilled water. And most batteries are sealed at this point, you can't do that anyway. Make sure your battery is secure, bouncing around could damage or short-circuit it, and stopping and starting is hard on your battery, so avoid multiple short trips. Oh wait, I told Bernie. I hung up and called AutoZone where I had purchased the battery when my car wouldn't start one Sunday, even after Aaron next door had jumped it. It still covered under the 3-year warranty. Bringing the battery, the woman said on the phone, and she'd give me a new one. As I rifled through the glove box, looking for the right receipt, I realized something. I'd only paid for one new battery in close to a decade. The warranty on one almost always covered the cost of the next. Thanks, Arizona. So, there are things other than just the liquid and the bouncing and the jostling around for this, and something I'll point out to you. They have actually, they've improved this to an extent. Partially by not allowing the phones to operate if the battery reaches a certain temperature. And I've had that warning on my phone before. But if it gets really, really hot out, and then you're doing a lot on the battery as well, and that thing gets warm and warm and warm, and if it gets cold too, and that's a dry cell battery in your phone, that will, the life will be almost gone. You'll go from 100% to 20% in a matter of a few minutes sometimes. Because heat on either a dry cell or a wet cell chemical reaction, it changes the way the way that things do. And that's something to keep in mind as we look into the EV future. Now, as I've always said, if you want an EV, buy an EV. I don't want an EV, so I'm not going to buy an EV. But if you want one, buy one. That should always be your personal choice. But some things to keep in mind, and it's the battery technology that we are not there with yet. EVs that normally have a 500 to 700 mile range, when it gets into a bitter, bitter cold Wisconsin winter, drop that range to 50 miles fully charged. And then of course, whatever it is that you have to go back out to get charged again. When you're in the heat, it's going to have some of the same effect, and you're not going to get that same mileage out of that battery as you would have under the ideal 60 to 70 degree moderate temperature. We are not there on battery technology, and I hope that we get there at some point, but we're just not there and ready for it yet. And again, if that doesn't deter you and you still want the EV, get the damn EV. And yes, hot temperatures on any battery are going to play hell on. And the last one of the day from Fox News this is Florida man's wife, Florida woman, I guess. Florida woman doused herself in Diet Mountain Dew to erase DNA after killing roommate, 79, according to cops. What did you think was going to happen here? What was the end plan here? I gotta know that. From Christina Coulter. A blood-smudged Florida woman suspected of murder accrued additional charges after she asked police for a soda and poured it all over herself in an attempt to scrub forensic evidence from her body, Daytona Beach police said, and of course it's in Daytona. Nicole A. Mox, 35, was charged with tampering with evidence and resisting arrest, with violence and premeditated first-degree murder in the death of 79-year-old Michael Sarasoli on August 5th, per probable cause affidavit shared with Fox News Digital by police. Firefighters were called to a smoldering home on the 600 block of Clark Street. At 1:46 a.m. on July 1st, clothes on the second floor had been set on fire. The Volusia County Sheriff's Department told Fox News Digital, but it said that they had no additional information on the arson investigation. After quickly extinguishing the flames, first responders found Sarasoli lying face down in a blood-spattered room. He had suffered blunt force trauma to the head and stab wounds to the torso, police said. The dead man's landlord told police that Mox was his other tenant, but the woman was nowhere to be found. 2 cell phones were recovered near the 79-year-old's corpse. One belonged to the victim, the other, which had a bloody knife balanced on top of it, belonged to Mox. Yeah, that's usually an indication that there was a problem. Less than 2 hours later, police said they spotted a barefoot Mox with blood on her leg and ripped shirt outside a Crystal restaurant in a nearby community of Holly Hill. I'm going to go on a limb and say meth was a factor here. When they approached, police said she dropped a knife and a hammer at their feet. Mox evaded questions about her recent whereabouts, where she lived, first pointing in a direction, saying she lived right over there by a nearby pawn shop, and then claiming she had been living on the streets for the last 4 years, police said. After she was read her Miranda rights, Mox told detectives she never entered Sarah Sully's bedroom and only set foot on the second floor of their shared apartment to feed her spiders. Yeah. Well then. When asked about the weapon she had dropped, Mox became agitated and demanded a lawyer. Police returned later with a warrant to test the woman's body for DNA evidence. Mox then asked for a can of Diet Mountain Dew, and the police obliged her. She began to procrastinate with the drink, and detectives tried to pull the can away from her, police said. Then Mox began to resist and poured the can of soda all over her body and hair, pulling away from officers in an attempt to interfere with possible evidence on her body, according to the affidavit. Police then allegedly forced the pulling and kicking Mox into their cruiser. Meth is a hell of a drug, guys. Needless to say, I'm pretty sure the blood that was on Mox matched the victim in this. Definitely looks like a winner, that's for sure. Alright. That's it. That's all that I have for the day. Light live chat for us today. Remember, on Monday we do a review of the live chat at the end of the show. But I have read everything throughout the show as well over on Instagram today. B Keto21 joined over here. Oops, you don't want to type anything in here. Horwads Millian joined us. Said that she loved this, and Kim Barbie attempted to join the live stream, but we're doing news here, so. Few people lurked over on Rumble. No comments over there, remember. Again, we get the review at the end of the show, and on the main platforms, Mogwai was our big chatter for the night. On a slow news night, of course. Reminding me, of course, the song, and avoid the Monday evening mute, because for whatever reason, sometimes on a Monday, when I switch the scenes into the news scene, then my microphone mutes, and I don't know why. Mogwai says, if I dropped 15,000 feet in a plane, well, needless to say, something else would have dropped too. With the Lindsey Graham joke, sure, I enjoy playing with Mick Bags. Holy F, Lindsey, Jesus, why are you still here? And Mogwai says, Dow being up is because of the greatest economy since Jesus walked on water. Doubtful. DM Ryan is here, says hi, and Jungle Forever, with the news tip, says a dog daycare flooded here in DC today. Man, you're in DC? Get out of there, if you can. With many dead dogs. That will be on the stack for tomorrow. I found the story for that. And with that, we're out of here. Where's the outro? Where's the outro? Where's the outro? There it is. Alright, nice short night tonight. No 2-hour stream for us tonight. It'll be nice and easy to get back up onto the audio platform so you guys can hear that. If you couldn't hear the entire program tonight, always up for review on Rumble and on YouTube as well, or on the audio platform. You can find us on Spotify. But with that, we're out of here. Take care. Have a good night. Hug your family. Call your friends. Get some dinner. Get some sleep. I know we all got to go back to work tomorrow. Definitely I do as well. And I will be back here tomorrow. Not late tomorrow. I hope. I'm going to try not to stay as late as I did at work today, because I was there till almost 5:30 today. But take care. Have a good night. And again, hug your friends. Tell your family you love them. And get yourself something to eat. Do some self-care. Find something good on the TV. I think I'm going to start. I just finished off Two Broke Girls. I think I'm going to take a run on Home Improvement, because they put that on a Disney Channel just kind of catch up and redo that one. One of my favorite shows as a kid, but we'll see what happens with that. That might be on things that I like later on this week. And have a good night. And until tomorrow, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.